Hey everybody, I want to talk about what I learned from painting this Cypher miniature. Now, I generally don't like to paint black very often because I find it to be somewhat cartoonish, but in this case I used a Stynylrez Res primer for it. Let's see if we can get in there. It's the black one. I brushed it on because of the area I lived in, and I experimented with how I was going to edge highlight it. I don't like edge highlighting. I think it often looks cartoonish, but in some of these cases, as we bring him a little closer to the camera, there's no way around it. So, what did I do? I used two paints, and we'll see if we can get the camera to focus. Of course not. We used Ashen Blue as the base of the highlight, what's the chunky highlight as they like to do, and it was nice, but it left a somewhat not very great amount of detail on it. So I moved up to Ghost White, and I found that it provided a fairly convincing highlight, as you can see on the leg here. And we'll just turn the camera slightly further down because it wants to fight me. And the reason often a lot of people like to use blues or bluish tinted colors is that it tends to look fairly white on the armor, and blues and blacks tend to go very well together. I tend to highlight my blacks with an olive green, but that's because I like it to look dirtier. So if you want a dirtier kind of messy look, that's a good way. You can also thin down that olive green and to a wash consistency and put that in areas, and it will make things look dirty and dusty. Now, moving on from there, the cape ended up getting a 2-stage treatment from a a Reaper paint called Driftwood Brown. And then I moved up after I base coated it, and I wet brushed it with Morghast Bone. Now, wet brushing is effectively when you don't remove as much of the paint off the brush as possible. The paint tends to be a little bit more wet, and you brush over. What it will still do is leave some of the deepest areas that darker color, but it's a little bit easier to coat over. Again, the Driftwood Brown was not the desired color, but I wanted that in the depths. Now, I, of course, ended up coming back in and reinforcing and cleaning up some areas that I just did not like that it had missed or been a little bit thinner on. Like, for example, in here, I had to come in and catch that. I still wanted that shade, but it was not very strong on this flat, so I ended up coming in and, of course, hitting it with that higher color. For the inside of the cloak, that is flat red from Vallejo. And let's see if we can bring that in there so we can get that number for everybody. 70957, flat red. I love the way this red looks. It's my favorite red when it comes to paints, and I happen to like it. Now, that ended up on the belt buckle on the inside, which is very hard to see, the interior of the cloak, including the hood, and the wings on the lion's sword. I haven't highlighted it yet, but I'm going to end up highlighting it with a orangey red, or this fire red from Reaper. I actually live near where Reaper manufactures their paint, so that's why I have a number of them. And I will hit up the high spots on the reds, and I like the kind of color it gives. It's usually a very nice, but I tend to be a kind of an oddball, so I experiment, and there's a lot of ways you can go. For the metallics, I used a pair of paints. For the flat metals, I used Vallejo's Oily Steel 70865. And for the golden areas, I used good old Retributor Armor. Just a fantastic gold color. Now, the gold ended up getting a coating from the old Army Painter Flesh Wash, but you could use any reddish flesh wash you want. This one I just happen to have, and it looks nice. It gives a kind of a rosy gold color, which I like. Now, how did I shade the metallics? I shaded that with, since I don't really use known oil or things like that, I used a speed paint. Grave Lord Gray from Army Painter Speed Paint 2.0. It works really, really well. It gives a kind of an old metallic look to things, and you can see on the pistol, it gets those little details very well. Known oil works just fine. I just happen to like the finish it gave, and then what I came in with was the oily steel, hit the high spots to clean it up a little bit and give detail, like along this part on the shoulder pad and the chain. He has a little chain holding his his cloak on, his cusp I haven't finished. And of course I hit up the bolt pistol. Now, for his face was a bit more of an ordeal. I hit it with Ivory from Army Painter 7918, in case you're interested. And I came in with a speed paint, Noble Skin. It is a member of the 2.0. You don't have to do this. I use this for a very particular reason, because I like to have, I don't paint the eyes because I'm not steady enough to do that, and I wanted the darker elements, the deeper recesses, to be a darker color. Then I came in and I hit it up with Barbarian Flesh, which is an old Army Painter paint. I believe they have a newer one you can get. And then I hit up the very highest spots, so leaving those depths, the hero skin. I came in, hit the cheeks, the eyebrow ridge, the chin. I'm trying to turn it so hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. And of course the nose, blah, 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 with that. Then I came in with the elven skin and I hit the tip of the nose, the very edges of the cheekbones, and of course the upper lip got a tiny bit of it, and of course the chin, the very end of his chin. That's how I do flesh. It's a little bit of a mess, but I think it looks pretty good, and I'm not trying to win an award. For the bone elements, which would include the part or the skull on his his knee pad, the T-posing skeleton on his chest, and the two skulls on the arm plates, and of course the skull on the sword pommel or guard, and of course the skulls here. I hit them up with Ivory, and then I came in with a Vallejo Express color, and I just hit it up with Bag of Bones 72450. And I did this because, one, painting bone, you can really go out to do it, or you just get it done, and I tend to like the way this finished up, which was nice. Of course, when we're talking about some of the other things, it is an interesting situation. Now, for the browns in this includes the base and of course the holster, the letter part holding the ammunition fed into his pistol, the strap from the holster, and this under element and the little straps holding it on. You could go a little bit crazy, or more crazy than this, and of course the ground on the basing itself. Let's just push him out a little bit more. I used a combination of, let's go in there, muddy brown for the base, and then intense brown for the higher colors. Now for the base, what I ended up doing was putting the muddy brown down, then coming and dry brushing the intense brown over it, And then I took ivory, our good old friend, and I hit it again to give it a little bit of a more highlight, that kind of whitish peaks in there. Now, you don't have to do that, but that's what I did. And for the coil on the plasma pistol, I ended up using Plasma Bolt. Now, I had a bit of an ordeal with it because it's a speed paint 1.0, but because it's supposed to be blue, I wanted it to be green because, well, I think that ties in with the Dark Angels more, and it's what I had on hand. It was a bit of a faff, but what I did was I hit the coils up with ivory, and then once that was dry, I came in with a Plasma Bolt and put that over it. For the handle of the Lion Sword, I used aged hide, and I'm not super happy with the color, but I wanted to test it out and see what it looked like. But the thing is, at the end of the day, after doing all this, I wanted to say, if you're one of those people out there and you're not sure about what to paint something, what colors are the best colors, do yourself a favor and go and test out things and see what you like. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can simply paint over those mistakes to clean them up. You will learn for every bit you do, and just because you don't have the perfect paints for what is expected does not mean that you can not get a result that you are, one, happy with, and two, look great. There are not many people who are going to look at a fairly well painted model and go, gosh, what flaws. My brother, who is not very capable of painting himself, has been astonished with a lot of the results I've gotten, and honestly, it's a learning experience. It's a hobby, and I found it quite interesting. Hopefully this helps people, and just go out there and try things out. If you decide, for example, to not do certain details, like under these skulls here on his little arm plates, I forget what they're called, there's a little red wing. I just decided I wasn't going to paint it because it seemed like too much of a fap. You will go out there, find techniques that work for you, that get the results that you want, and people will still think that you are doing amazing work. So hopefully this was at least entertaining for some people to watch and explains kind of the weird madness and inconsistency of my own painting. So you guys have a wonderful day, and bye-bye.